Okay, so you know how we're always talking about jobs that are, like, essential but kind of invisible? The ones nobody really thinks about until something goes wrong?
Right, like the folks who make sure your lights stay on or the water's running.
Exactly. Well, today we are diving deep into a career that's, well, it's definitely down in the trenches, so to speak.
Sounds messy. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
We're talking about drainage workers.
Drainage workers, like the people who deal with sewers and stuff?
That's one way to put it. We're using RoleCatcher's career guide on drainage workers, and let me tell you, it is way more complex than just, unclogging a drain.
Really? I guess I never really thought about it, but somebody has to design and build those systems in the first place.
You got it. And maintain them and troubleshoot them when things go wrong, which, let's be honest, with all that water pressure and underground chaos, seems like it could happen a lot.
I'm already feeling for these folks, so walk me through it. What exactly do drainage workers do on a daily basis?
Well, the guide emphasizes that it's not just one thing, it's a whole skill set. Think about it. You've got different types of drainage systems for different purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. You've got your basic stormwater drainage, keeping the streets from flooding, but then there's also sewage. And what about industrial sites?
Exactly. Each one has its own challenges, its own materials, its own set of regulations.
Regulations, like permits and stuff, or what?
Oh, way more than permits. We're talking environmental codes, building codes, safety regulations, you name it. Imagine accidentally disrupting a protected wetland because you misread a survey map.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not good. So it's a lot of responsibility then. And these survey maps, are we talking old school paper maps or something more high tech?
Buckle up, because RoleCatcher mentions they're using CAD software. And get this, even augmented reality in some cases.
Augmented reality for drainage, that just seems so futuristic. How does that even work?
Picture this. You're standing on a street, looking through your tablet, and bam, you see a 3D projection of the entire drainage system below you. Pipes, cables, everything.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk about taking all the guesswork out of it.
Right. It's about precision and safety, especially when you're dealing with heavy equipment and potentially hazardous materials.
Hazardous materials, like what?
Think leaky sewer lines, contaminated runoff, that kind of thing. The guide stresses that this isn't just a desk job. It can be physically demanding and sometimes even dangerous.
Okay, so it's physically challenging, potentially hazardous, and requires a deep understanding of like engineering principles and regulations. What kind of person thrives in this kind of environment?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think we'll get into that more after the break because RoleCatcher had some really interesting insights on the kind of personality that excels in this field.
Well, don't leave us hanging. I'm hooked.
So we were talking about what kind of person thrives as a drainage worker before the break, and RoleCatcher points out some interesting traits.
Yeah, like what kind of person wants to deal with other people's, waste all day? Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's an important job, just.
Totally. And RoleCatcher gets that. They actually emphasize that folks drawn to this field are often those who like to solve tangible problems.
Yeah.
They see a challenge, they figure out a solution, they get their hands dirty in the process.
Okay, that makes sense. It's very hands-on, very practical. But what about those who, like, love the problem-solving part, but maybe aren't so into the whole getting dirty aspect?
Interesting question. Because it's not like you're stuck in a trench forever, right? The guide actually highlights several career paths within this field. You can move up, specialize, even start your own business.
Really? Okay, tell me more about these different paths. Like, let's say you start as a drainage worker. What's the typical progression look like?
Well, one option is to climb that ladder to a supervisory role. Think about it. You've got years of experience on the ground. You understand the ins and outs of different systems. You could totally oversee multiple projects, manage teams, handle budgets.
Wow, from trench digger to, like, drainage maestro.
Yeah.
So you're basically running the show then.
Exactly. And then there's the specialization route. Remember we were talking about industrial drainage systems?
Oh, yeah, those heavy-duty ones, right?
Those require a whole other level of expertise. You're dealing with specialized machinery, complex regulations, maybe even some chemistry thrown in there.
So you could be the go-to person for, like, a massive factory, making sure all their waste is handled properly and their systems are running smoothly.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And chances are that kind of specialized knowledge comes with a higher pay grade too.
Okay, so we've got leadership, specialization. What was that other path you mentioned?
Oh, right. Starting your own business. RoleCatcher actually highlights this as a growing trend.
Really? What, like starting your own drainage company? Who would have thought?
Right. As cities grow and infrastructure needs get more complex, the demand for skilled independent drainage contractors is only going up.
Huh. It's like being a drainage detective, going from site to site, figuring out the problem, and coming up with a custom solution. Kind of cool, actually.
It is. And RoleCatcher points out that if you build a solid reputation, you can even start specializing in a niche, like sustainable drainage systems or green infrastructure, stuff like that.
So you could really make a name for yourself, especially as more people are focusing on eco-friendly solutions these days.
Exactly. And speaking of standing out, RoleCatcher gave a cool example of an entry-level drainage worker who went above and beyond to impress potential employers.
Ooh, I love a good success story. What did they do?
So this person was already working in the field, but they were hungry to learn more. They started taking online courses on soil mechanics, attended industry conferences, even joined a professional organization for drainage workers, all while still doing their day job.
Wow, talk about dedication. But it makes sense. Like if you're passionate about something, you want to keep learning and growing, right?
Absolutely. And it obviously paid off because RoleCatcher highlighted them as a prime example of how to get ahead in this field. And that actually brings us to another great tip they offer.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the secret sauce?
RoleCatcher recommends building a portfolio.
A portfolio for drainage work. What would you even put in that? Pictures of manhole covers?
Well, not exactly. Think about it. You could have before and after photos of your projects, detailed descriptions of the challenges you overcame, maybe even testimonials from satisfied clients.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea. It's one thing to say you're good at something, but to actually show tangible results, that's huge.
Right. And it shows you're proactive, you're thinking ahead, you're serious about your career. Which, speaking of, RoleCatcher doesn't just stop at career advice. They've also got a ton of resources to help with the actual job search process.
Like what? Tell me they have a magic button that gets you hired on the spot.
Wouldn't that be nice? But seriously, they do offer some pretty cool tools. Remember how we were talking about those online applications that feel like black holes?
Oh, tell me about it. It's like throwing your resume into the void and hoping for the best.
Well, RoleCatcher can help with that. They have these AI-powered tools that analyze your resume and cover letter. Make sure they're optimized for the specific jobs you're applying for.
Whoa, so no more generic resumes, crossing your fingers, hoping something sticks.
Exactly. And it gets even better. They have a massive library of practice interview questions, categorized by industry and job title. So you can practice your answers, get feedback on your delivery, and walk into that interview feeling like a total rock star.
Okay, now that is impressive. It's like having a personal career coach in your pocket.
Right. And they offer all of this for a variety of careers, not just drainage work, which is pretty awesome.
So we've learned a lot today about a field that most people probably never give a second thought to.
We have. We've gone from ditches to augmented reality, from soil mechanics to building a personal brand. Who knew there was so much to uncover? Any final thoughts before we wrap up our deep dive into the world of drainage workers?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is how much more there is to drainage work than meets the eye. It's a field that demands both technical skill and creative problem solving. And with the increasing focus on sustainability and environmental responsibility, it's a career path with a lot of potential for growth and innovation.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who's intrigued by the world of drainage work, be sure to check out RoleCatcher. It's an incredible resource for exploring this career path and taking your job search to the next level. Until next time, keep those brains engaged and those questions coming. It really is amazing. RoleCatcher really seems to know their stuff when it comes to career advice. But before we get too sidetracked, I think we should get back to the guide and talk about something we haven't touched on yet, the future of drainage work.
Oh, yeah, good point. What does the future hold for our underground heroes? Robot plumbers, maybe?
Maybe. But seriously, RoleCatcher does mention that technology is changing the game in a big way. We already talked about CAD software and augmented reality, but it goes even further than that.
Oh, like what?
Well, for example, some companies are now using drones to inspect drainage systems in hard-to-reach places.
Whoa, really? Drones flying through sewer pipes. That's wild.
It is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole sustainability angle. The guide talks about how climate change is leading to more extreme weather events, which puts a lot of stress on existing drainage systems.
Yeah, that makes sense. More intense rainstorms, more flooding, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So drainage workers are on the front lines of adapting to these challenges. They're the ones figuring out how to build more resilient systems that can handle whatever Mother Nature throws at them.
Wow, I never thought of it that way, but it's true. They're like the guardians of our underground infrastructure, making sure everything keeps flowing smoothly no matter what.
Exactly. And that's not even mentioning all the work being done on green infrastructure like permeable pavements and bioswales, which are designed to mimic natural drainage patterns and reduce runoff.
So it's not just about building bigger pikes anymore. It's about working with nature to find more sustainable solutions. That's really cool.
It is. And it just goes to show that drainage work is about way more than just, digging ditches and unclogging toilets. It's a field that's constantly evolving, with new challenges and opportunities emerging all the time.
Totally. It sounds like a career with a lot of depth, so to speak.
I see what you did there. And speaking of depth, we've covered a lot of ground today, literally. Any final thoughts on what we've learned about this fascinating field?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is how essential drainage workers are to our everyday lives, even if we don't always realize it. They literally keep our world running smoothly, from the moment we flush the toilet to the moment we drive down the street after a rainstorm.
Absolutely.
Right.
And with all the technological advancements and the growing focus on sustainability, it's a career path with a lot of potential for growth and innovation.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who's intrigued by the world of drainage work, be sure to check out RoleCatcher. It's an incredible resource for exploring this career path and taking your job search to the next level.
And as always, keep those brains engaged and those questions coming.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of drainage workers. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic and plenty more insights. Until then, stay curious.